shitty network. Okay. All right, everybody. Welcome back to the Bitcoin Plus Plus Conference live news desk. And joining us now, we've got John and we've got Lightcoin and Liam joining us. Guys, thank you so much for coming on the Pleb Underground live conference. And I just want to dive into what are you guys working on?
Yeah, so we both work at a company called Alvin Labs, and we're working on technology at the intersection of Bitcoin and zero knowledge proofs.
Interesting. Okay, we're gonna dumb it down.
Yeah.
What does that mean for someone like me? So that's what I meant by dumbing it down.
Yeah, sure. Yeah, sure.
Is this privacy? Is this?
So we're building a blockchain that Bitcoin. It's technically called a roll up. You might hear this term roll up, which is a type of blockchain that uses another blockchain for security. And in this case, the other blockchain is Bitcoin. And so users are going to be able to like transfer their Bitcoins from the Bitcoin blockchain to this other roll-up blockchain, and then do transactions that are the same kind of transactions that you would be able to do on other like Ethereum virtual machine based blockchains, such as Ethereum and other blockchains. So, expressive smart contracts, financial smart contracts, new kinds of privacy protocols, really anything that you could build in that kind of blockchain environment you could do, but using your Bitcoin.
Interesting. Okay, so of course I'm going to be annoying, but like, is there like some other token that gets created as a result of this?
No, it's just a big.
Because that's always the problem, right? It's like, because I hear like roll-ups, and because I don't understand everything as technically and as deeply as you guys are actually working on this stuff, when I start to hear these things about like other blockchains, and I'm like, oh no, I'm like, you're going to be stuck with another token. So it's actually Bitcoin.
You just use Bitcoin.
Sweet. Yeah. That's awesome. All right, you hear that, guys? It's Bitcoin. That's perfect.
Yeah, you can do Bitcoin with fully expressive smart contracts.
Okay, so let me ask you this: how I guess how far along in this project are you? Is it actually released to the public, or is it just kind of like beta, and it's kind of like the way that Lightning was back in 2018, like reckless, so to speak? Or can you speak to that point?
It's not even reckless yet. It's still under development.
So wow.
We're planning to do a test net later this year, but yeah, still under development.
Okay, cool, very cool. And Liam, what are you working on in regards to this project?
The bridge. So the way we move Bitcoin from Bitcoin blockchain to the rollup, and that's where the zero knowledge proofs come in. And people may have heard of BitVM and related sort of developments. That's a big part of why this is sort of now possible in a way that it wasn't.
So question. So I'm assuming BitVM is required before this can take place, or is this a prerequisite for BitVM?
Yes. BitVM is necessary to make the bridge.
Okay. Okay, so BitVM is required for this as a prerequisite.
Yeah.
Okay. Interesting.
Although technically the bridge that we're building is a variant of BitVM, so we're not actually relying on BitVM direct.
We recently released a blog post yesterday called Snarknado, which is
Snarknado?
That's right, yeah.
That is a great name.
Thank you.
Did that come at all from the Sharknado series? I'm just wondering.
No comment. But it's based on BitVM. It's the same sort of primitives, and this is necessary to support snark verification on Bitcoin without a soft fork for cat, for example, something like that.
When you say cat, you're referring to OpCap.
That's right.
Yeah. Right? Okay. That's pretty interesting. So I guess in terms of like the purpose of this is what, privacy and scalability, or like, I guess what would you say is the main focal point of what it is that you guys are developing here?
I think scalability and features. So like more expressive smart contracts and the ability to process more.
What would that mean to a to an end user, right? The more expressive smart contracts, like to a retail person that doesn't understand what is happening in the background. What would this mean in terms of transactions in the real world. Could you guys speak to that? Because I know that sometimes, like often, like these layers are kind of abstracted, and it's like we can do this really cool stuff, but for people like me, it's like we don't understand how to apply it to the, to our everyday lives, so to speak. Can you guys talk to that point at all?
Yeah, so I would say that to your end user, what that translates into is being able to do more things with your Bitcoin in a way that's like self-custodial or closer to self-custodial than you would get if you were using like a centralized exchange or some kind of centralized finance company, like all the ones that went bankrupt a couple of years ago. So, instead of having to entrust your coins to these like fully trusted centralized third parties, you can instead use a smart contract where the rules are transparent and like the trust model and security assumptions are kind of baked in, and you might not even have any single, trusted third party that you need to entrust with your coins. And so you could do trading this way. You could do things like loans where you borrow against your Bitcoin, basically putting up your Bitcoin's collateral to get a loan. You might be able to, as a developer, build new kinds of layer 2 protocols that enable end users to pay each other, just doing peer-to-peer payments in a much lower cost way, again, without having to give up custody of their coins to a trusted third party. Currently, right now, with Bitcoin L1, the types of layer 2 protocols that you can actually build are you're limited in the kinds. It's basically just Lightning network.
Yeah, pretty much.
And then there are a couple of other
Mercury layers being worked on.
Yeah, there are other projects like Mercury or state chains, broadly speaking, as well as things like Fedimints and eCash servers and things like that. But other than Lightning Network, those other protocols all kind of introduce like a trusted third party into the system that users have to like trust with the security of their coins. And so by enabling more expressive smart contracts, we give developers the tools that they need to build layer 2 protocols that don't necessarily rely on trusted third parties.
Nice.
Yeah, so you can build new things like alternatives to Lightning or even improved versions of the Lightning network, such as a version of the Lightning network that supports a protocol called LN symmetry. This is like a technical thing, but people might hear about this. You can't do that on Bitcoin L1 today, but you could build something like that on a rollup that has more expressive smart contracts.
So let me ask you this. Possibly, when do you think that this is going to be available? That essentially as a kind of like as a layer to really work on for the retail user, right? Because as you said, it's like you guys are like not even close to beta; it's still in like development. So, how long do you think? Like, what you see something like this
next couple of years?
Hey?
I don't want to put any
Just
pressure on.
Yeah,
I don't want to put any pressure on the engineers, but sometime in the next couple of years.
The reason why I ask these questions is because like I'm a Gen Xer. I grew up before the internet existed, right? So I got to see that happen, and I saw the massive incline, right, going from like the 56K or the 33K dial-up, which was a total nightmare, like having to deal with jumper settings all the way to where we are today. And so I often ask these questions about the timelines because I like to show like, hey, this is actually moving much faster than we think, so like, yeah, this is really interesting stuff.
Yeah, I mean, to make a point of comparison, like the Peg sidechains white paper. Sidechains was like a protocol that a lot of people were excited about in like 2014, 2015 kind of era. The white paper for sidechains was dropped in like 2014, and the first production sidechain went live in like 2018. So that was almost 3.5, 4 years difference. And then Lightning had a similar kind of experience where the white paper dropped in like 2015.
Lightning? Yeah, 2015, 2016. I think so.
And then actually went into production on mainnet in like 2018 or something like that. And so again, another like 3 to 4 year kind of gap. So here, like rollups are already like an established technology in other ecosystems, so we're not kind of starting from scratch. There's a lot of learnings that that are out there that can apply in our situation, but also we're doing something novel. It's on top of Bitcoin, on top of a new type of bridge based on BitVM. So there's some novelty that might kind of add to the development timeline. But it's not something where I think people are going to be waiting 3 or 4 years for this. I think it's within the next year to 2 years.
Oh, very bullish. Very bullish. Liam, I'm sorry. Did you have anything to add to that?
I think, like you said, roll-ups are fairly well trod territory. The
Yes.
stocks are performant enough for them to really work. And I don't know, maybe I'm a little biased because this is the part that I'm working on. I think that the biggest novel contribution will be the bridge, like actually building the bridge to Bitcoin. Like a lot of the other stuff, we have to adapt it, but it's not like there's no remaining existential questions. It definitely is possible.
Okay, I've got one last question for you. It has to do with the bridge because, and so as we know in the shitcoin world, as we saw in the last cycle, the bridges were the kind of like the Achilles heel, right? Like you'd often hear about this awesome protocol or this thing is happening, and then boom, funds are swept out of the bridge. We don't know what happened, and so I'm assuming that this is a concern for you guys that you've actually been looking into. Does this matter because you're building on Bitcoin? Like, is this what I'm trying to say? Is that was that something that is just isolated to the altcoin bridges, or is that a concern for you guys? I'm talking about the safety and the resilience of the bridge.
Definitely, I think the bridge is probably the easiest part to attack of the system, and the security of things, is only as strong as their weakest point. So I think to some extent it's like a cultural difference, right? Like Bitcoin tends to be a little bit more conservative and take security more seriously than other projects. But yeah, no, we're working very hard to make sure it actually works.
Absolutely.
Yeah. There are two, I think, major classes of attacks on bridges. One where you're able to attack the actual nodes that are controlling the funds in the bridge. Because bridges don't just operate autonomously. They're actually nodes that are signing transactions and
between the two.
Between the two.
Yes.
Yeah, on each side of the bridge.
Yeah.
And then there's actually attacks on the smart contracts themselves that those nodes are interacting with. And a lot the hacks that we saw over the past few years, a lot of them are actually on the smart contracts. There have also been attacks on the nodes, but those even in the case where there was an attack on the node, it was exploiting a vulnerability in the smart contract, which reduced the trust model from M of n to 1 of n, or rather 1 of n signing policy. And so for the nodes, if they were to attack a node, then in the BitVM-based protocol, you need to actually compromise all of the nodes in order to steal the funds in the bridge. That's a relatively high bar to reach, as opposed to just compromising a single node. And then for if you want to hack the smart contract, this would be something where there would be a vulnerability in the actual BitVM program that is enforcing the bridge. And for that, I think it's just a matter of developing everything, with a high standard to the actual quality of the code, as well as getting peer reviews, audits, things like that, which increase the confidence in the bridge code that it's actually secure and doesn't have these critical vulnerabilities. And of course, putting it through its paces on testnet, throwing a bunch of different scenarios at it and making sure that it's behaving as expected. And that's the kind of rollout process that we expect to do is putting it on testnet in multiple rounds of testing, getting peer review, open sourcing it, of course, and getting the eyes on it so that we can ensure that the code is actually working as expected.
Well, you guys definitely sound like you're doing your due diligence on this. I really appreciate it, and I think this project is absolutely going to be huge. For the viewers, where could they find more information about this project?
Yeah, sure. So we have a website, alpenlabs.io, where people can learn about the company. We have a Twitter account, or I guess X account.
It's okay, it's Twitter.
At Alpen, at Alpen Labs. That's ALPEN LABS. And there, they'll see, it's a pretty high signal account. We just tweet whenever we have an important announcement to make. They can read about the
Beautiful.
Snark NATO blog post that we just published, and follow along as the developments continue coming out.
Guys, I really appreciate you joining us on the Pleb Underground / Bitcoin ++ live conference feed. Thank you so much.
Yeah, thanks for having us.
Thank you.
Sweet.